Good afternoon, Suidlanders. How are you? Today is Friday, the 10th of March 2023, and this is Suidlanders Week in Review. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Yesterday, I did 2 interviews last night, and they lasted a total of about 2 hours and 45 minutes, so my voice is exhausted. And this afternoon I've got to do an interview at, I think it's 6:30, and I have to hold quite a serious conversation with another media outlet that would like to cover Suidlanders, do an article on Suidlanders, or do a video, a documentary on Suidlanders. So I don't have that much voice to spare today. We begin with last Saturday because we work Saturday to Friday. This obviously being a Friday afternoon, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So next week's video will run from tomorrow up to next Friday inclusive. The idea is really quite simple. We begin with last week over the weekend. We had the EFF telling us that the Mpumalanga leader, who was photographed posing with a semi-automatic rifle, was not incitement to violence. Just remember that, everybody. If you find yourself in trouble for posing in a photograph with a rifle, apparently there's no harm in it. SASSA says there's no money to pay grants. What do we have here? This is from, in fact, last week, Friday, but we only got it over the weekend, and we haven't already covered it, although we have done other videos, not Suidlanders Week in Review, about this. The ANC plans to stop social grants in March 2024. Now, I don't know if I'm losing my marbles, but I do know this, that I have been doing videos talking about some grant recipients being shed from the 1st of this March 2023, not 2024. Now, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination as well informed as the Democratic Alliance is, so the error must be on my part. And I apologize for that to those of you who've seen things that I've posted about it or allusions that I've made in videos, but I am firmly convinced that I did read material on this quite some time back suggesting that some grants would expire and not be renewed and people would be slowly shed from this 1st of March, that is to say 10 days ago or 9 days ago. Now, the interesting thing is that in this article, which this is a website that follows SASSA, keeps a good eye on it, and seems to be very sympathetic in certain ways to Suidlanders' point of view. It reads here, since November 2022, vulnerable beneficiaries of child support grants, old age pensions and disability grants have increasingly been turned away from SASSA pay points. Beneficiaries are being told that there is no money in their accounts, say Dion George and Bridget Masango, apparently experts. So we need not make this entire video about SASSA. Let it suffice to say that it does seem as if there are problems with SASSA grants. Farmers could lose 500 million rand this year as load shedding adds to the South African citrus export woes. We all know what this is about. We know that it's about irrigating of citrus trees, requiring power to pump that water. It's about storing and refrigerating the fruit. It's about getting it onto ships, and so on. At every stage in the proceeding, there's a hindrance, a hurdle, and it could cost, as I say, farmers 500 million rand a year in this 2023. It's a very serious thing. Lauren Southern, who spent 10 days with Saitlanders in 2018. We took her all around South Africa. We took her to visit our wonderful leaders and provincial leaders and local leaders and farmers, friends of ours. We took her to meet the blood sisters, the people who clean up murder scenes. And she made a fantastic video called Farmlands. And during the course of this past week, on Tuesday, in fact, I think it was released on Monday, we first spotted it early on Tuesday. It had only been out for a few hours. She made a follow-up video to say, was I right in all the work that I did in the video that I produced with Saitlanders, Simon Roche, etc.? And she goes on to make the case that she was dead right in spite of the fact that she was vilified for that original Farmlands video of 4 or 5 years ago. And that's done the rounds, something phenomenal in my social media circles. I have sent it out to everybody, and I've had it sent back to me about 6 times. What next? The Nehawu strike and the Wits University strike. The Nehawu strike seems to be the most dangerous of all. We have heard that 4 people have died as a direct result of the Nehawu strike. That is to say, the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, which is on strike principally in the hospitals. We read about one story of a nurse with a panga hacking at an ambulance, trying to pull out a critically ill child, being transported to the entrance, to the admissions, to the ICU admissions. We heard about other nurses trying to pull out a child from an ambulance. And all that they have said in return is, your health is not our problem. Likewise, at Wits University, they're on strike. They want more money. They want higher allocations for housing. They want the NSFAS, that is to say the National Students Financial Aid Scheme. I believe that's what it stands for, to give them more money. They want the Minister of Higher Education, Bladen Zimandi, to resign. They met with the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi. They were dissatisfied with that. And lastly, but not least, they are demanding that all students that have debts, outstanding debts of less than 150,000 Rand must be allowed to register. Only those with unpaid debts to the university of 150,000 Rand and above may be excluded from registering and returning to this year's university year. And they want a 10,000 Rand cash deposit for accommodation. I beg your pardon, that the 10,000 Rand cash deposit be scrapped at the universities. What else? What's next, guys? The cabinet reshuffle. I don't even want to talk about this. I made a note to say that I'm not going to talk about it because it's just such a balagan. It's just such a mess. It's a spaghetti of a mess. The Minister of Young People is 74 years old. The story just goes on and on and on. The new Minister of Electricity failed to fix the water crisis in Hammanskraal. They haven't had proper water services there in some areas for 20 years. The new Minister of Tourism built a border fence that illegal tourists could cut open with a nail clipper. The new Minister of Transport has been Deputy Minister of Transport on 2 previous occasions. Potholes all over the country were heard celebrating her return to the department. They can't wait. The new Minister of Sport has arrived, and in his own words, will continue to arrive. The new Deputy President has the easiest of tasks. All he has to do is simply achieve one thing, one maasakant, and he will have beaten his predecessor. The reappointed Minister of Police has still not been able to solve the murder of the rapper, AKA, caught on camera in Durban. So, what are your thoughts on this reshuffle? Somebody wrote here. It really is just not worth talking about. It is not worth Suidlanders paying attention to the reshuffle of the cabinet as if it was a serious thing. It is just another African National Congress mess. Sadly, I think I've skipped over something here. Beg your pardon. Shoprite sales grew by almost 18%, but a 560 million rand diesel bill ate into its profit. And I wrote, my own comment on that report was, the reason the share price dropped so dramatically is because the shareholders are clever. And they immediately knew that Shoprite sales must have declined, because a 17.5% increase in sales is less, not more, than the approximately 25% food prices increases over the past year. Plus, the shareholders would have been furious that in spite of the sales increase of 7.5%, again in nominal terms, when adjusted for inflation, it was minus 7.5%. They, the shareholders, so in spite of the sales increase of allegedly 17.5%, they only got a 6% increase in their shares dividends, which could also be translated after adjustment for inflation as minus 11.5% in our layman's arithmetic. So Shoprite scored 5.5% for free from their shareholders to pay for the diesel. Very, very clever. And I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. Later that day, that was Tuesday, we learned that there was a GDP shock as South Africa's economy shrank by 1.3%. And again, if you take proper inflation adjustments into account, it may be as high as a shrinkage of minus 5%. It really is very, very serious, ladies and gentlemen. Again, on Tuesday, late, we learned that the rand had dropped to 18 rand 54 cents. And between February, the 7th of February to the 7th of March, so from the 7th of February to that very day, Tuesday, the rand had dropped from 1753 to 1854, being 6% in one single month. Again, a very, very dark revelation. Excuse me for 1 minute. Right, what next? I see that a number of the articles that I've pulled up for review are, on second thoughts, not that powerful. We heard about SASSA on strike in 3 provinces because of various gripes and complaints and what have you. And again, it doesn't bode well, does it? None of the news about SASSA, even if some of it is not entirely true, as I say, if I'm wrong about what I recall reading about people's beneficiaries being shed from this March, as opposed to the DA's claim that it'll begin in 2024, even if we're wrong about that, there is just so much negative news coming out of SASSA, and it doesn't bode well at all. Right. What's going on in Ukraine, you ask? Well, the Bakhmut meat grinder, the Bakhmut cauldron, is unquestionably being dominated by Russia, and greater and greater, or more and more of Bakhmut is falling into Russia's hands, and it looks as if the thing is only headed in one direction. And the importance, the crucial importance of Bakhmut is that it lies at a strategic point in the lines. I speak not as a military aficionado. A strategic point in the lines, which, should it give, will allow Russia to advance a long way further again before it's realistically likely to be halted. So it will enable Russia to push much of the entire front far further forward, perhaps some 20, 30 or even 40 kilometers in one go. Suddenly everybody is a realist. Netcare is offering some of their staff and their families shelter if the grid collapses. And what is their reasoning? Their reasoning is that they are afraid that they will not have sufficient staff to attend their most ill patients if the grid collapses and their workers in some sort of trauma or fright or anxiety return home to the Eastern Cape, to Pondoland, to KwaZulu-Natal, to the rural areas, to their home areas, to their preferred townships and so on, as opposed to wherever they have found accommodation near to their places of work. So Netcare can see that the writing is on the wall. There's a very good chance that this thing is going to get much worse, and they're not going to be able to take care of patients. We have the Daily Maverick talking about the fourth quarter GDP contraction that we alluded to and about which we have done another video too, calling that the signal of the start of a deep recession. A deep recession. Their words, not mine. Yesterday, Thursday, the 9th of March, Kim.com. Do you remember Kim.com? Kim.com was the architect, the brains behind the pirate downloading service where you could get any music and any videos and anything that you wanted for free, that circumvented the entire music and television industry. It was circumventing YouTube, and Netflix would have, if Netflix had been around at that time. I don't think it was already then. Who was subsequently jailed, and he lost his house. He's a German guy who moved to New Zealand. I mean, this guy's had all sorts of dramas and traumas over time. Listen to what he tweeted. We saw it yesterday. He tweeted it the day before. Unbelievable. I can see clearly what's happening and where the world is heading. Now, you don't have to like this guy. I don't. I dislike him. But there's no question that he's a very, very clever man. I wish I could do more to help you. He's talking to the world. My advice to you, move to the bottom of the southern hemisphere if you can. Get out of Europe and the US. The escalation will happen rapidly, and you may have no time to prepare. Echoes of Sina van Rensburg. Echoes of Sina van Rensburg. Echoes of Sina van Rensburg. Absolutely unbelievable that somebody like him should be giving a forewarning like that, that simply echoes Sina van Rensburg's prophecy pertaining to the White Tents and to the evacuation of Europe 110 years ago. Again, in Ukraine, Russia launched a missile attack of 81 missiles, including 5 or 6 Kinzhal missiles. Do you remember? that we anticipated having the Kinzhal missile launched during the joint South African, Chinese, Russian naval exercises between the 17th and the 27th of February this year. We expected that they would let off one of those missiles, and we were on the edges of our seats to see it happen here in South African waters off the coast of Richards Bay or Durban or somewhere in between. Sadly, they didn't do it. They didn't fire it. But the airborne equivalent has been released in the past few days in Ukraine. Apparently, the devastation is phenomenal. This 81 missile attack has destroyed a lot. Yesterday, another train overnight. Sometimes the time differences can be bewildering. But yesterday or the night of before, another, that is to say a third in as many weeks, train derailed in the USA. This time not carrying toxic substances, and it was in Alabama. The previous ones were in the neighboring states of Pennsylvania and Ohio, up in the northeast. Alabama being in the central south, what they call the deep south. The people of the deep south make a big distinction between themselves and the people of the south. It leads me to wonder if Donald Trump Jr. isn't correct, or whether he isn't, more correct than most people are giving him credit for, when he alleges that this is a Russian sabotage campaign. Let's face it, they'd be well within their rights. Yesterday, the EFF warned that if people didn't close their businesses, those businesses, that is to say, didn't close their businesses during the forthcoming national shutdown of Monday the 20th of March, that those businesses would be harmed, looted, plundered, pillaged, marauded. And I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that one ongoing event, these warnings of the past 24, 36, 48 hours, allow us to understand where we are in the new South Africa rainbow nation, Ubuntu, Simunye, we are one. If white people drove around the streets of South Africa saying that if you do not shut your business, or you don't do this, or you don't do that, we're going to come and destroy your property, the country would be in a hue and cry. A major political party is getting away with it scot-free. We learned a couple of days ago that New Zealand is recording its highest death toll in 100 years. And Saitland has sent a letter of commiseration. Our hearts go out to the people of New Zealand suffering the devastation of global warming. I mean, what else could it be? Sadly, Standard and, come on Simon, get the right thing. Standard & Poor's rating agency has downgraded South Africa a little bit more. It wasn't expected. It was only meant to come out, this annual or 6-monthly review, in May, but they expedited it and brought it out because of everything that's going on in South Africa. Excuse me, I'm hiccuping. I'm not sure why. They implemented a downgrade yesterday. It's a very, very big thing. Small, it was a small downgrade, but coming as it does on top of everything else in South Africa. It is a heavy straw upon the camel's back. We then saw a number, really a whole bunch of videos and reports and articles and so on this week. I mean, I've done 3 interviews just this week on this one subject about the collapse of South Africa. So from an external point of view, from an observer's point of view, foreigners and agencies and media houses are gaining the impression that we are in a severe crisis in South Africa now. Oh, last but not least, I think we're going to do a more in-depth video on the EFF strike. So I'm going to leave talking about that. We've already touched on it. I'm just going to briefly mention to you the police strike. It seems as if the police, or some policemen, I don't know how much support there is for the strike, will go on strike 3 days before the EFF on the 17th of March. I beg your pardon. That is to say 1 week from now, Friday, a week from today. It may be a very ominous thing. Then again, it may be a storm in a teacup that doesn't live up to the hype. Let's relax. Let's not get too worked up. We will cover it closer to the time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Cheerio, everybody, and bye-bye.